Ahead of this annual St. Patrick's Day parade in South Boston, local lawmakers are looking to keep hate out of the festivities. The kind of hate that was on full display at last year's parade, when members of the white supremacist group NSC 131 hung a banner that read, "Keep Boston Irish." They also defaced public property on the T and in the city with hateful propaganda, according to Congressman Stephen Lynch, City Council President Ed Flynn, and other local leaders who sent a letter to the chief of the MBTA Transit Police urging them to collaborate on a security plan to keep what happened last year from happening again. Council President Ed Flynn joins me now, as does GBH News senior investigative reporter Philip Martin, who's been covering white supremacy in Massachusetts extensively. Thank you both so much for being here.
It's good to be with you.
Philip, let's start with you. Can you tell us a little bit what happened at last year's parade?
Well, last year's parade, I think people were surprised. Thousands, tens of thousands of people showed up in South Boston for the annual parade, and suddenly you have about 24 members of NSC 131, a neo-Nazi group, standing as the parade would go by with a huge banner in front of the parade goers and those who were taking part in the floats and so on and so forth, with a banner that says, "Keep Boston Irish." And it was something that was absolutely surprising to a number of people. And at that point, you found two people who were this was live tweeted, and they saw this. This is the filmmaker Rod Weber and Lauren Pespisa. They're local anti-fascist activists. They climbed in jumped in their car, came down to the demonstration, and started demonstrating. They came down to the parade, I should say, and started demonstrating as a couple and asking others to join in. Some people, and then suddenly people started denouncing. They started realizing what was going on, and they started denouncing these individuals. They started to leave some of the footage you just saw is them leaving the parade after they were being shouted at. And Weber and his colleague followed Lauren Pespisa, and were harassing these individuals. But essentially, the bottom line is they had a presence at this parade, and it angered a lot of people, angered them so much that the following week, there was a counter demonstration in which they had actually, NSC 131 had actually challenged the band, the Dropkick Murphys, to show up at this park in South Boston. The Dropkick Murphys were there along with many supporters, but NSC 131 did not show up. Anyway, this became a huge international story, as you know.
Right, and I want to ask Council President, you've written, and other public officials have written this letter calling for the MBTA police to step in. Why the MBTA? Why reach out to them? What can they do to address this?
Well, you are correct. We reached out to the MBTA police. We also reached out to Boston Police and the state police as well. We are meeting with all three of the departments very soon. But they do use the MBTA system to get from one location. I think it's somewhere outside of Medford and Malden, that area the last time, and to get into the city through the MBTA system. But also it's about working closely with Boston Police, MBTA Police, State Police. There really should be zero tolerance. There's no room at all in this city for this white supremacist group or any hate group. And we've seen a lot of these demonstrations here in the most progressive city in the country. And we've seen at various hospitals, colleges and universities. We've seen anti-LGBTQ demonstrations. We've seen attacks on the Jewish community, immigrant community. So here in Boston, we need to stand together, acknowledge that we have problems just like every other major city, but we're also a city that respects our immigrant roots, and we want to make sure we have that when we have an event, it's inclusive, it's safe, and it's welcoming for all.
One last thing on the MBTA call specifically is what ability does the MBTA have to control who rides their trains?
I think the MBTA police will want to know when these Nazis or white supremacists are using the MBTA to get from one location to the other location. It's also about coordinating resources, knowing that when they get off a stop, that another police department should be aware of their presence in and around a particular neighborhood. What they're doing is they're trying to divide residents, they're trying to intimidate people, and they're trying to hurt people through this hate message and through violence. And I think the people throughout Greater Boston are not going to stand for it. And as an elected official, I think every elected official across the state needs to stand up and speak out against these, I call them thugs, that are intimidating people across our state. So I'm confident that our public safety resources will be coordinated appropriately for this upcoming parade.
To that point, Philip, if these protesters, if these white supremacists do have signs again like they did last year, what ability, if any, does the Boston Police Department have to do anything about it?
I think there's the issue of free speech. I think that's the bottom. That's the part of the question you're getting to,
right.
Greg, and the right to assembly. But there's also questions of intimidation, and which fall within a legal, that become part of a legal concern: intimidation, harassment, and if parade goers feel that they are being intimidated, harassed. And they don't have to prove intimidation, by the way, as a legal standard. But if they feel that they're being intimidated, harassed, police can play a role. I'm not sure about, I don't know the intricacies of the law such that whether or not they can take their signs away, so on and so forth. But I think that they can, in fact, they have the ability to address the situation if people feel harassed and intimidated. And if you have individuals with swastikas on, and skull masks, and they're basically directing their animus toward, as Councilor Flynn said, Jews and people of color, Asians, LGBTQ communities. There is a understandable concern on the part of those who might be taking part in that parade that they are being intimidated and harassed.
Right.
And that becomes a reason for some type of action on the part of the police, the U.S. attorney, even, and local law enforcement officials.
Council President, is there a risk of infringing on the freedom of speech of these white supremacists?
I don't think so. I certainly support the First Amendment, but when that First Amendment is used as a way to intimidate people, cause hate, cause violence, that's when the First Amendment for me is not applicable in that situation, because then these Nazis are using this opportunity to create division, to create violence, to create hate crimes. And Philip is right. I also have talked to the U.S. Attorney, Rachel Rollins, several times about this over the years. I know she's very concerned and is on top of this situation, and she's provided excellent leadership. I also think this is a violation of civil rights, which makes it a federal jurisdiction. So it's about city, state, and even the federal government working together to ensure that every city is inclusive and everyone is treated with respect.
Philip, what is happening here? Why are we hearing more from these groups? Are they growing in size, or are they becoming more vocal? What your reporting has really looked at what's going on with white supremacy and these kinds of hate groups. What's going on?
They've experienced some growth, yes, but that's not the main thing. The main thing is they feel emboldened. There's an they feel that they can amplify, and they have had success amplifying the mainstream concerns of many within the far right of the Republican Party, That is why they have targeted transgender people, have targeted LGBTQ, have targeted so-called critical race theory and what that represents. The difference between the on the ground extremists like NSC 131 and some within the Republican Party who are on the far right is that the latter still employ dog whistles. NSC 131 is very explicit with their anti-Semitism, very explicit with their racism, but they're amplifying issues that are part of this so-called culture war that has been embraced by, sadly, by many within, again, the far right flank of the Republican Party. And thus you see, that is not to say that you'll see members of the Republican Party hanging banners from a highway, imploring people to be concerned about white individuals, about white people. But you do hear within the Republican Party amplification of the great replacement theory, so-called, that white people are being replaced by immigrants and others in some mad scheme to displace white people within the United States. That's something that Tucker Carlson talks about often. It's something that's been amplified by Marjorie Taylor Greene, Lauren Boebert, and others within the Republican Party. So what you're seeing is an amplification of again, cultural themes by extremists. In other words, the mainstreaming of extremism. And it's not just NSC 131 that is of concern to many people. It is the Patriot Front. They have established a presence here. It is a group called the Base. It is the Proud Boys in New Hampshire. And it's also the reason, I should add, that the Attorney General of New Hampshire and others within mainstream law enforcement have pressed charges against NSC 131, civil rights violations for hanging hanging banners in New Hampshire, feeling that this was not a question of, as Councilman Flynn said, of freedom of speech or assembly. This is a question of hate speech and a violation of civil rights, and thus they took a step to address it.
Council President, you have a meeting next week, I think you said, with city and state officials and law enforcement to address safety at the parade. What do you expect, what do you hope is going to come from that?
That we coordinate and exchange ideas on how to make sure that this parade is inclusive, it's safe, that people that do come to the parade have an enjoyable time, but they aren't intimidated by hate groups that come to this parade to divide people, to cause havoc, to cause violence and intimidation. That's not what our city's about. This is an inclusive city, and it's important that everyone is treated fairly in Boston. But we want to make sure and acknowledge that we have, as Philip said, extreme hateful groups throughout Massachusetts, throughout New England, and we have to acknowledge it, but we also have to deal with it. And it's not going away. It continues to happen. It's happened at the Children's Hospital, Beth Israel Hospital, the Holocaust Memorial. These same Nazi groups have marched right through the downtown area, right through the Chinatown area, intimidating AAPI communities. And Philip is right. I think this hateful speech started under or was enhanced under President Trump. It continues today. And I think it's important that we come together as a country, acknowledge it, but to deal with it and to make sure that we always treat our immigrant community with respect and dignity. I think that's the important part. It's easy to intimidate people during a pandemic, especially the immigrant community. And that's exactly what President Trump has done, in my opinion.
Okay, well, Council President Ed Flynn and Philip Martin, thank you both so much for joining us to talk about this.
Thank you.
Good to be with you.